So let me just briefly introduce our wonderful guest today, Rebecca, and she's a Reiki Master and Occupational Therapist. She's an award-winning author and an inspirational speaker. She has had a shared death experience and several spiritually transformative experiences, and she's going to tell us all about them. So without further ado, I'd like to hand it over to Rebecca, and welcome. It's lovely to see you again.
Oh, it's a blast. Thank you, everybody, for being here, and some familiar faces and some new faces, and it's just a delight. Let me share my screen. I'm going to be doing a little bit of a PowerPoint presentation for a bit, and we're going to talk about Reiki validating the afterlife, and also it enhances after-death communication. And so it's really quite a honor and a privilege and a pleasure to be here with you all. I love the International Association for Near-Death Studies. It has been extremely validating for me. And when Angie said that the annual conference is going to be held in Northern Virginia, it's absolutely fantastic because I'm here from Pennsylvania and it's only a couple of hours away. And if you have not been to an annual conference, I highly recommend you come. It's an absolute blast and very, very validating. So I'm a science-based occupational therapist, and I learned to communicate with the afterlife, even though I had absolutely zero psychic or spiritual awareness. And so today I'm talking about how Reiki validates the afterlife and enhances our ability to communicate with our loved ones and other beings that live in the afterlife. So I'm going to share with you a little bit today about Reiki. And then at the end of this, I have plenty of time for questions and answers. So feel free to put your questions in the chat. Angie will facilitate it, or just raise your hand. Ask me anything you want. Thank you so much for being here. What we're going to talk about today is how I happened to discover Reiki and what Reiki is, how the use of Reiki can bring us in touch with the afterlife, facilitate after-death communication, particularly with our deceased loved ones and with others, and assist our entrance into the realm of a variety of existences. I'm also going to be describing the recent Bigelow Awards. And if you haven't heard of them, I can't wait to share how the Bigelow Awards validate the afterlife. Reiki's acknowledgement of life existing beyond our physicality reinforces the evidence of after-death communication and, of course, near-death experiences. And I'm going to share how you can learn Reiki in just one day, which I believe sounds a bit ridiculous, but you can learn Reiki for one day. I've been practicing Reiki for over 27 years, and it really is quite an amazing complementary and integrative modality. Reiki is often known as unconditional love, which I absolutely love that. And it's going to be woven throughout the presentation. So thank you so much for being here, and let's get started. So what happened to me was in 1995, my brother David passed. He was 37 years old, and I couldn't believe he passed. It made no sense to me at all. I think everything in life is positive, and I could find absolutely nothing positive about the fact that my brother David had died. At that point, I had no spiritual or psychic awareness, although I am going to talk to you a little bit about my sheer death experience in a moment when David actually passed. But it was about 6 weeks after he passed. I was riding my horse through a Christmas tree farm, and it was in the middle of November. David passed on October 1st. This was 6 weeks later. And we had just had our first frost. And so rainbows were sparkling and icicles were hanging from the trees, and it was a beautiful day. For those of you that have lost loved ones, first of all, I'm so very, very sorry. You know that the grief that we feel in our heart. It's a Boston accent. So for the woman that's here from Maine, this is probably going to sound somewhat familiar. Yes, Susie, it's going to sound familiar. But anyway, when we have so much grief, our heart is closed, and we can't feel anything really except for the grief. But that day, it was beautiful. And I opened my heart for the first time since David passed. And I said, thank you. Thank you, universe, for a beautiful day. I closed my eyes and there was my brother. He was in human form. He was wearing a black and red plaid flannel shirt, dungarees, and sandals. As mentioned, I had never experienced anything like that before. I started to talk with him and realized in a split second, all I needed to do is share thought. The scene was luminescent, filled with love. David was great. I was great. I'm like, how could I be anything but fantastic? I'm talking to my brother. I looked to the right and there were my grandparents, and they had passed about 10 years ago, Abe and Bessie Dole from Wellesley, Massachusetts. And they were holding hands like they always did. Standing beside my grandparents was Edward, a childhood friend, one of my brother's best friends. And Edward had passed about 6 months ago. Standing beside Edward was a friend of mine, Holly, and she had passed 20 years ago in a motor vehicle accident. And there was about 24 other people that I knew that had passed. The scene goes on. I also heard from Gramps, and Gramps was my dad's dad. So Gramps was my grandfather. I didn't see Gramps, but I heard him. There was a whole journey that happened around what's called this spiritual transformative experience. And there's a huge connection between having spiritual transformative experiences and near-death experiences. You know, near-death experiences is when our body flatlines, yet our consciousness travels. A spiritual transformative experience is when you didn't die. You just somehow were able to have this experience. So let me for a minute stop and explain this somehow. When my brother passed, I had known that he was going to die for about 3 years. He passed of AIDS, and it was a time in the 1990s. For those of you that are a little bit older, you might remember when people who had AIDS were dying by the thousands. And so I had just casually asked David if he had been tested for AIDS, and he shared that he had and that he was HIV positive, and for me to please not tell anybody. And so what happened was that left me with no support system. And I found myself in a bookstore, Barnes & Noble bookstore in Exton, Pennsylvania, and I'm a science-based OT. I didn't even know there was a word New Age. I didn't know the word holistic. I didn't know about an I didn't know any of this, but that's where I found myself. And I started reading books on the afterlife. And so when David passed, I had sent him some of these books, and he and I were generally aware that there might be a way that I might be able to communicate with him, but we didn't know anybody that did this. The last night that David was in the hospital, he was being treated at an excellent hospital in Boston, Massachusetts, and I didn't want him to die alone. I thought he was going to die. I woke up at 3:00 in the morning, and he was on a ventilator. And, you know, when you're on a ventilator, you can't talk. Essentially, he was expected to pass, and I felt nothing. Now, I was not aware of energy at all, but somehow I knew that he wasn't there. I was 20 minutes from my parents' home, and I thought, well, my gosh, now what do I do? Do I go back to my parents and say, well, David's still, his body's still breathing, but he's not there? That seems silly. So at that point, I looked around the room, and David had a clear quartz crystal that was his. And he also had Edward, this fellow that I had seen in my experience already. But at that point, I had not had this experience. This is when David was dying. Anyway, I picked up Edward's crystal and David's crystal for whatever reason. And David was lying flat on his back, and I pulled my chair up so I was right beside David, and I held onto his hand, and I put the two crystals in my hand and his hand around the crystals, and I closed my eyes, and what I saw was the ocean. Now, granted, I had never done anything like this before, but it was a beautiful scene, and in the ocean was this huge fat dolphin-like creature. I'd never seen anything like this before. And I looked at this dolphin-like creature, big, wide animal, and it had beautiful brown eyes. And I kept looking at these brown eyes, and I realized they were the eyes of my brother. Now, David was born in March, so was I, so was my dad. We're all Pisces. We all love the water. And when David was living, he lived for 7 years with AIDS. Now people do live, but at that time, everybody that got AIDS died. And so David was considered a long-term survivor, but 2 years before he passed, he had a shunt, which meant that he couldn't go swimming in his beloved ocean. So when I looked at this big, huge, large creature with David's eyes, it made me realize that David had passed and that he was living and swimming in this ocean. And very, very, very slowly, this animal with my brother's eyes that I believed was my brother came towards me very slowly, very beautifully, just looking at me the whole time. And then it entered me. And I had the most incredible feeling of love and joy and awareness that my brother was alive. He had just transitioned. And this is what's called a shared death experience, when you actually participate in a person passing. Now, physically, David didn't pass for another about 36 hours. But that morning, my parents came. And I was absolutely filled with joy. And my dad's a minister. I was a preacher's kid, but religion didn't really work for me. Spirituality did. And I remember it was about 7:30 in the morning, and this had happened about 3:30 the previous night. And I remember telling them about this. And to their credit, I am so thrilled they didn't tell me that I had lost my mind. My dad said, "Becky, people deal with death in all sorts of ways." And I thought, all right. It wasn't until a couple of years ago, I was listening to a Helping Parents Heal presentation by Elizabeth Boyson, and she's one of the co-founders of Helping Parents Heal. And she talked about her shared death experience. And I thought, my gosh, what I had was a shared death experience. And so shared death experiences and spiritual transformative experiences really do enhance our ability to communicate with the afterlife and with our loved ones that have been living beyond. So now I'm going to switch back. So I'm going to switch back to when this is 6 weeks after my brother had passed, and I had seen him. I was with him. I had seen my grandparents, Edward, Holly. And I opened my eyes. There's a whole story on this, but I want to share with you about Reiki too. I opened my eyes, and that was, again, another validation for me that life is eternal. And I thought, I must learn how to talk with my brother. And so I looked for a teacher. And you know, when you're on the same path, when you're in the flow, things happen, synchronicities happen. And I was able to find a shaman, and this shaman used Reiki. A couple of months later, after I started again communicating with my brother, the shaman taught me how to do this. Reiki facilitated it. I became a Reiki Level I and Level II practitioner. And that's all you need in order to learn how to heal yourself, heal others, and Reiki enhances after-death communication, which I'll share in a moment. So I explored 10 years. 10 years I explored Reiki, practiced it on myself, practiced it with others, became a Reiki Master. And so I've been sharing the joys of Reiki for 27 years. I primarily train medical professionals, but you don't have to be a medical professional. You can be anybody, but it's so much fun for me to bring Reiki and the healing components of Reiki to the medical profession. So in 2015, I decided to see if I could present Reiki, one day Reiki training, Reiki Level I at the American Occupational Therapy Annual Conference. Had never been done before. And lo and behold, it got accepted. The next year I thought, well, gosh, if they accepted Reiki 1, which is a one-day program, maybe they'll accept Reiki 2. Well, that happened. And I'm like, all right. And so every single year since 2015, I submit a blind review for a proposal. They have no idea who it is. And Reiki's been provided in person at every AOTA annual conference since 2015. 2016, Duquesne University in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania calls me up and they said, hey, Beck, a couple of our faculty have been to your Reiki program. We were wondering if you could please come to Duquesne University and train all our graduating occupational therapy students on Reiki. And I said, yes, that would be great. Now, when I do in-person Reiki training, because Reiki also works online, but when I do in person, I always try to get there the day before and set up the room so it's a beautiful spa type environment, which is what I did. So I walked in on Friday and there was about 44 OT students. So I said, hi, I'm Becky Austill-Clausen, and I'm here to teach you about Reiki. How many of you are familiar with Reiki? Do you know not one person raised their hand? And I'm like, oh, wow, this is going to be interesting. Well, what happened was the next day, Duquesne partnered with the Pennsylvania Occupational Therapy Pittsburgh chapter, and they said, hey, Beck, can you teach Reiki to our graduating students on Friday? And then on Saturday, can you teach it to the community? So I said, yes. In one weekend, 70 people learned Reiki. And that's when you get your Reiki energy activated. And you also learn how to receive and share Reiki with others. Do you know, most of these 70 people had never even heard the word Reiki before, had never had Reiki before. 20% had after-death communication experiences. Now, when I teach Reiki, almost all the time, somebody in the group has an after-death communication experience. And if you ask any Reiki master, they'll say that, but most people don't talk about it. I talk about it. The next year, I went to Lily Dale, and hopefully you all are familiar with Lily Dale. Lily Dale is the largest community of psychics and mediums in the United States. And Lily Dale is located by Erie, Pennsylvania, in a town called Lily Dale, New York. There's 13 to 15 blocks of psychics and mediums. And for those of you that are familiar with energy, it is absolutely incredible. I was about maybe 4 blocks away, and you could feel the incredible energy from this Lily Dale community. Lily Dale is what's called a spiritualist assembly. It's the first spiritualist assembly in the United States. It was started in 1879. And spiritualism believes that it is appropriate and totally fine to use people with psychic and mediumship experience to communicate with loved ones. They actually support that. If you go to meetings, they call them meetings, that oftentimes that occurs during a spiritualist meeting. So I had been volunteering with hospice for, about 5 years, and a group of Reiki masters, all of which had volunteered with hospice, we all went to Lily Dale. I was absolutely thrilled to realize that at Lily Dale, Reiki is provided for free every day in the summer at the Healing Temple. So I thought, okay, if at Duquesne University, 20% of 70 people had after-death communication experiences, and Lily Dale also provides Reiki, Reiki really does enhance the ability for us to communicate with our loved ones. The next year, I was asked to present after-death communication at Lily Dale, and it was such a professional honor for that to happen. And so it's really a marvelous place. If you haven't been to Lily Dale, I definitely encourage you to go. So what's Reiki? What is Reiki? So let's look at what's on the slide. Reiki is a holistic, safe, gentle, non-intrusive, hands-on healing technique for use on yourself or with others, which uses spiritual energy to treat physical ailments without pressure, manipulation, or massage. Reiki encourages personal and spiritual growth, and it's very well accepted throughout the world. Millions and millions of people now are familiar and skilled with Reiki. One of the things I like about Reiki the most is that there's no rules. I've never been fond of rules. It's not dogmatic. It helps us learn about ourselves, expand our awareness, and it doesn't interfere with religion or life philosophies. You can believe whatever you want. Reiki is not religious, it's spiritual, and a belief in Reiki is not required, but permission is required. Like it's not appropriate to just go and send Reiki to people just because you think they need it. The idea on this earth is that we're here for our own good. We all have free will, and it's up to each one of us to choose how we want to live our life. Reiki works if you're conscious or unconscious. It's never been found to harm anybody. Rei, R-E-I, that means there's a higher intelligence. That's what Rei is, higher intelligence. Some higher intelligence in the universe, whether it's wisdom, spirit, a soul that's transcendent, powerful, or mysterious. The key is like chi, it's energy. So you have some type of energy that is related to this energy in the universe, related to this higher level in the universe. The energy used in Reiki is called prana in Sanskrit, mana in Polynesian, ruha, the breath of life in Hebrew, pneuma in Greek, or the divine or the source or God, whatever you want to call it. Reiki is considered a biofield energy modality because we all have energy. So let's talk about this energy. Let's think about this energy for a minute. If you go to the hospital and you have an EKG, you have an electrocardiogram, what that's doing is that's measuring the beat of your heart. What it's doing is it's really measuring energy. But we don't call it that. We say we're going to have an EKG and we're going to measure our heart. If you have an EEG, an electroencephalogram, that measures our brain waves. It's measuring the energy of our brain. Or if something did something to your arm, you didn't break your arm, but you did something to it, you might have an MRI, a magnetic resonance image. It's looking at the energy of that arm. It's looking at the health or the disease or the impairment of your arm. That's energy. So we do deal with energy all the time in the United States, but we're so very biomechanical that we don't call it energy. Reiki believes there's a universal life force energy that we can all access. Again, the divine, source, Allah, Buddha, whatever works for you, doesn't matter. There is something. Reiki believes there is something beyond our physicality. This energy was discovered by a fellow in Japan named Miko Yasui. He's a Japanese sensei, which means a very learned person. And he passed in he passed in he didn't pass in 1922. He discovered Reiki in 1922. So Reiki is 101 years ago. Now, this is his form of Reiki, but this energy is very similar to what people have used for thousands and thousands of years. The Yasui form of Reiki, a natural energy healing modality, is used by millions. What happens as a Reiki practitioner, and this is a quote from Dr. Susan Thrain, who's a nurse. The Reiki practitioner is a channel for this universal energy, much like a garden hose is a channel for water. So if you get Reiki treatment, it's not that the practitioner is the one that's making some changes in your body. It's your own body that's facilitating the channels. The Reiki practitioner is just a garden hose. The energy flows through the Reiki practitioner to the person that's receiving Reiki. The person's own body is doing the healing. So I'm learning about all of this. This is 1997. And it's much more common these days, but at that point, it was not common at all to talk about the afterlife. I knew no one that was talking about the afterlife, no one that knew Reiki. except for this shamanic teacher who was teaching me. An occupational therapist friend of mine, Dr. Michael Peasy, was putting on a state-of-the-art holistic conference. This is 1997. It was for integrative health physicians, psychologists, nurses, therapists, all sorts of folks. And so I went there. And there's a process which you can still do to this day. It's wonderful. It's called Kirlian photography. And what it does is it takes a picture of your aura. And aura is the energy that surrounds our body. So I didn't even know about the aura. And I didn't even know if I thought it was real. And I didn't even know if you could take a picture. And if you look at the before picture, that's before I learned Reiki. And if you can see, I have a little bit of a smirk and I look maybe a little bit uncomfortable. And right here, this is my aura that's not fully complete. I've got a more complete aura on the left side, but on the right side, that aura is missing. I then learned Reiki, went to this conference, decided I had not lost my mind, decided that I was actually doing all right. And this is 3 days after I had learned Reiki and attended this 3-day conference. And what you'll see is my aura in 3 days was complete. It really is quite something to realize that we can change the energy in our body immediately. And it certainly, as shown here, can be done within 3 days. So I've been doing Reiki for 27 years. And one of the most common things you hear about Reiki is that it's not valid. People may say that it works, but there's no research to validate it. And so I've been waiting for this study that's on your slide right now for like 27 years. In 2019, a large-scale Reiki study was done. And this is the largest Reiki study, to my knowledge, that's been done to this date. And you can get it. You can get it. It's online. It's free. If you just Google DYER, D-Y-E-R. Sorry for the Boston accent. DYER, large-scale Reiki study. And you'll get this study. It's a good study. And it is by Dyer, Baldwin, and Rand. What it did is it analyzed the effects of one session of Reiki with 1,411 people across the United States. 99 Reiki Masters provided one session of Reiki. These Reiki Masters were all trained by the same organization in the same way. Statistically significant results were found that had reductions in pain, nausea, anxiety, appetite, tiredness, depression, shortness of breath, and an overall sense of well-being in one session. And this was done in 2019, published by the Journal of Alternative and Complementary Medicine. And Ann Baldwin is, I think it's Ann, or it might be Dyer. I think it's Ann Baldwin, was the one that's affiliated with Harvard. So it's even affiliated with Harvard as well. So what's energy? We talked about energy with the EKG and the EEG and the MRI. All matter is energy. Reiki energy flows freely around us. It's within us and it flows amongst all creation, such as plants, animals, and people. Vibrant healing energy is especially found in nature. And I love being outside in nature. I encourage people, if you're ever stressed, to go outside and find a tree and hang out with a tree or go for a walk. Nature is very, very healing. Our body is composed of energy, which affects our emotional, physical, and spiritual health. So physically, it affects enzymes, protein synthesis, cell division, and when working smoothly, it creates well-functioning organs, tissues, and glands, leading to good health. And if it's not working well, if our own energy is not working well, it creates dis-ease. It creates disease, emotionally, physically, spiritually. Reiki can be learned in one day. I teach it in one day. You don't have to take it from me. Take it from anybody, but trust the person that you like because you are sharing energy. You know, for the first 2 to 3 years after learning Reiki, I'm like, Now, wait a minute. How can something so profound be learned and be accessible in one day? But do you know, I would think about this and I realized that I was less stressed. I was more relaxed. I used to take 4 to 6 Excedrin extra strength aspirin a day, and I had stopped taking that. And I'm like, wow. I couldn't really figure out why it was working, but it was working. Reiki teaches us to trust ourselves, to trust our intuition, and it helps us learn who we are and why we're here on this earth. It accelerates our spiritual growth, awareness, and understand, because everything we need is already within us. What Reiki does is it raises our vibrational energy. It enhances our ability to receive and share healing, both within ourselves and as we connect with the afterlife. Do you know 80% of after-death communication occurs in dreams? And so if you're interested in communicating with your loved ones that have passed on, and you learn Reiki, or even if you don't learn Reiki, place your hands on your heart. When you're going to bed, lie on your back, or however you want to do this. Usually helps to lie on your back. Place your hands on your heart. Take a couple of deep breaths and ask for your loved ones that have lived beyond the veil to come and communicate with you. You may want to keep a little tablet beside your bed with a pen, so that when you wake up, if you have a memory of what happened during a dream, you can write it down. We all have guides with us, and it helps to ask, because we're here for free will, and our guides will not assist us. They hardly ever assist us unless we ask. And so if you ask your guides for assistance, it does help. Reiki teaches us to relax our mind and enhance the love that is in our heart. Reiki teaches us how to love ourselves and help our clients to love and heal themselves. You know, when people have a near-death experience, over 80% feel that love. Now, there are some that don't feel that, and there's a variety of reasons that happens and such, but most of the time, we feel the love. That love ideally can be felt without having a near-death experience. And learning Reiki is the closest that I've ever come to feeling that love on a regular basis. Reiki facilitates this connection to the afterlife because we're all part of the oneness of life. This quote's from Eckhart Tolle. Sometimes letting things go is an act of far greater power than defending or hanging on. You know, when you let go, express gratitude for whatever it is that you're letting go, whatever it is that you're releasing, and then don't dwell on it. Just let it go. Let it go so you can heal. So how do you let it go? Meditate, engage in activities, share love, learn Reiki. After-death communication is greatly improved when we can let go and release and believe the signs and the symbols that you see that remind you of your loved ones living beyond are real. This is one of my most favorite slides and most favorite poems, and it's by Patrick Overton. And so I encourage you to read this along with me. When we walk to the edge of all the light we have and step into the darkness of the unknown, we must believe one of two things will happen. There will be something solid for us to stand on, or we will be taught how to fly. Many times we wonder if we have the courage, the will, and the fortitude to explore the afterlife. Reiki activates your own healing energy and provides you with the courage to explore. It's frankly incredible. And I do realize it sounds a bit ridiculous, but it is correct. We need to take care of ourselves in order to receive the benefits of exploring the afterlife while still living on Earth, because we are all connected. We know that from near-death experiences. We are all connected. We are all one. We are all part of the same collective unconscious reality. Reiki brings our earthly consciousness into an accessible realm of universal spiritual awareness. In this slide, you can see the fellow at the very bottom. He's almost reached the summit. Allow yourself to grow, to believe that you can communicate with your loved ones living beyond. Think about learning Reiki. Enhance your ability to grow, expand your awareness both internally and externally. Reiki helps release your mind from its constricted thoughts and broadens your awareness regarding the connectedness of all life, because we are all connected and we are all one. A wonderful, wise friend of mine, Lilia Samoilo, and you may know her because she and Diane Corcoran, President Emeritus of IANDS, who is doing very well, by the way. She's been ill and she's doing very well. That's the latest in the last 24 hours, which is just great. Anyway, Lilia says, people don't need a light switch to turn on the light. The light is always there. Allow yourself to feel the light that is shining within you. Let yourself believe in the eternity of all life. Connect with your loved ones living beyond. Let your light shine and release the constrictions that we place upon ourselves. We all know, as member of the IANDS community, that the afterlife is real. We know that. We all can communicate with our loved ones living beyond. People who've had near-death experiences state time and time again that they travel to different realms of reality, different realms of existence, and many times they see their loved ones that have already passed on. Activating your Reiki energy raises your vibrational skills, which enhances your ability to feel rather than just being consumed by our logical biomechanical minds. Becoming healthy internally helps us send and receive messages from the afterlife. Shine your light, it will be received. Louise Hay is one of the most early pioneers of the mind, body, soul movement, and her classic book, Heal Your Body, was published in 1976. It's really amazing. 1976, long before people were aware of the connection between the mind, the body, and the soul. Heal Your Body has been translated into 25 languages and sold over 50 million copies, and it's still valid to this day. Louise Hay passed in 2017, but this is a quote from one of her more recent books, Heart Thoughts, A Treasury of Inner Wisdom. And I quote Louise Hay with words on your slide, I am pure spirit. Be aware that we are all pure consciousness. We are not lonely or lost or abandoned. We are one with all life. End of quote. When we connect with our loved ones from beyond, we are connecting with their energy, their heart, their soul. We connect because we are part of them and they are part of us. Activating your Reiki energy helps you believe that you can receive and share communication with loved ones living beyond. So for Reiki, think not that you can direct the course of Reiki, for Reiki directs your course. Reiki uses our hands or our minds with intention to help provide healing to ourselves, to loved ones living on Earth and beyond, and also to the planet and our environment. When you're providing Reiki in person, you actually place your hands very gently on a person, or you can place it above the person, particularly if a person is sensory. They don't particularly like to have their hands, or they don't like to be touched. So you can place your hands gently on a person or a little bit above. It's the recipient's own body that does the healing. Mindful intention from the Reiki practitioner provided with healing energy raises awareness and vibrational skills because thought has energy. Have you ever read the book, The Secret? I hope you have. It was published in 2006, so it's a little bit old. It's what I call bathroom reading material. Over 25 million copies have been sold from this New York Times bestseller. It's one of my most favorite books of all time. The Secret shares the thought that positive energy facilitates positive thought, which enhances positive action. So if you think something positive, most likely something positive is going to happen. Reiki helps you maintain that positive approach. It enhances our intuition and our abilities and skills, and it helps each one of us realize our potential and to achieve the purpose that we are here on earth to learn. Reiki helps us connect with ourselves and our loved ones living beyond the veil and to achieve life's finest goals of love and joy. So how does Reiki work? Essentially, there are three symbols that Sensei Yasui found. He went on a vision quest, and he was provided with three healing symbols. He received these symbols, which are essentially Japanese letters that represent three energetic concepts of life: energetic awareness, emotional healing, and long distance healing. During Reiki Level I, these three symbols are placed in a person's aura, the energy surrounding our body. And I thought for years, what is the deal with these symbols? And I realized since millions and millions of people are using these same symbols have energy. And so by even thinking about these symbols, you're going to tap into that energy and receive enlightenment and healing. And in Reiki Level I, you get these symbols placed in your aura, and you also have experiential practices. Now, when I do this in person, you do it one-on-one in person. When I teach Reiki online, we use Zoom breakout rooms with just 2 people per room, so that you're one person sends Reiki and the other person receives it. And then you talk about it. And then the person that received it sent it back to the person that sent it. And then you talk about it again, and then we come back as a big group and we all talk about it. And we do this 3 times. So after you've received Reiki Level I, you learn self-healing. So you learn self-healing, because if you can help heal yourself, then you're not looking for anything else from anybody else. Yourself is healed, and you can provide healing to others. So Reiki Level I, you learn how to heal yourself, You learn how to help heal yourself, and you learn how to identify and feel the difference in energy from 3 different people that you've practiced with one-on-one. It really is quite phenomenal. The use of symbols in the attunement process is unique to Reiki. There's lots and lots of complementary and integrative modalities. I don't know any of them that use an attunement process. And to me, the attunement process, where these symbols are placed in your aura, is what makes Reiki so easily accessible, that you can learn it in one day. One of the symbols is a long distance symbol, and the symbol depicts the concept that we are all one. We are all connected. We are all part of the same fabric of life. Since we are eternal beings living a physical existence, there is no time. Now think about that for a minute. There is no time. Now, how many times have we on Earth been limited by time constrictions? I used to have a business, had it for 32 years, and I billed in 5-minute increments. And for years, I'm like, oh, no, wait a minute. How can there be no time? But there's only time on Earth. If we're eternal beings, there's no time. There's just time here. So when we're communicating with our loved ones who've already passed, it's because there's no time. We're all connected. Reiki can be sent to people living on Earth and people living beyond the veil. Reiki helps bridge our understanding of eternal life and brings an understanding to ourselves and life beyond the veil. Reiki releases the constrictions that our mind places upon us on this earth. We don't have to believe in just the physicality of life. You know, in 2017, I had just finished training in Reiki Level II. That's when you learn long distance healing. Reiki Level II, you also learn why and how it works. And so my recommended way to learn Reiki is to have Reiki 1 on one day and the next day followed by Reiki 2. But if you can just take Reiki Level 1, that's totally fine. You're still going to be able to learn and receive Reiki yourself and be able to give it to others. Well, anyway, so I'm at the American Occupational Therapy Annual Conference 2017, and we had just practiced sending long distance healing. And so there was a woman in the front row. Her name's Robin Bushi. She's an occupational therapist. And I said, does anyone have anything you'd like to share about your first time sending long distance healing? And Robin raised her hand and she said, Becky, before I came and received Reiki, because she was taking Reiki 1 the day before and then Reiki 2 that day, she said, I asked my daughter if it was okay if I could send her Reiki. Now, she had no idea when this was going to happen. The daughter said yes. So Robin sent Reiki to her daughter, and she said 30 seconds after she finished sending it, her phone pinged, and it was her daughter. And her daughter said, Mom, all of a sudden, I feel this tremendous sense of peace and love and joy and connectedness. Did you just send me Reiki? She had never had Reiki before. And the mom said, yes. Well, a couple of years ago, I had no idea who this was. I didn't remember the name, but I've told this story a lot. Robin Bushi surfaced and she said, hey, Becky, I'm the one that had the daughter who was able to tell me that she had just received Reiki and I'd like to become a Reiki Master. And it was so exciting for me I always require a Reiki Master interview, and to interview Robin and meet her daughter, and she became a Reiki Master, Robin did. And it's just wonderful. The synchronicities in life that happen once you're in the flow are absolutely phenomenal. There's one other thing I wanted to share about long distance healing. When my brother passed, it was about 2 years after he passed. And he came to me and he said, hey, Becky, Edward, the same Edward, his very good friend, would like to have some healing. Can you heal him? Now, Edward had passed. And I said, David, I have never done this before with someone living in the afterlife. I mean, at that time, I'd only been doing it for 2 years. And he said, David said, Becky, you're going to be able to do that. It'll be fine. And so I sent long distance healing to Edward. And I thought it went well, but I wasn't really sure. And the next day, David came and he said, hey, I talked to Edward and he said he feels so much better. So not only can you send Reiki and healing energy to people here on earth, you can also send it to those living beyond the veil. The power of long distance Reiki combined with love, belief, and intention is profound, whether you use it on earth or life beyond the veil. So how do we know the afterlife is real? Near-death experiences say that the afterlife is real. And David Kessler, who is an esteemed grief expert, and he's the one actually that worked with Elizabeth Kubler-Ross. If you all are a little bit older, you might remember Elizabeth Kubler-Ross. She developed the 5 stages of grief. David Kessler states that visions people experience at the end of life are remarkably similar. It's really quite amazing volunteering with hospice. And I would volunteer as a Reiki practitioner and also did some sound healing. It was so amazing to work with people that are passing. And I worked on what's called the unit where people were expected to pass within 3 to 7 days. And so a lot of times when you provide Reiki to someone that's in the stages of passing, You will not be able to feel energy from what's called the solar plexus, your power center in your body. It's from like your belly button below. That's your grounding. That's the area that grounds you to this earth. So when you're feeling energy and someone's passing, and I'm talking about imminent passage within a couple of days, if you're familiar with energy and you place your hands on or slightly above that person, most likely you're not going to be able to feel any energy at all from their legs, from their belly button down. What we do as Reiki practitioners when we're on hospice and people are within days or hours of passing is that we open up their crown, what's called the crown chakra, because the crown chakra is what connects us to the afterlife. And so we make it easier for them. You can pretty much tell when a person's going to pass, depending upon how much energy they still have in their heart. If there's a lot of energy in their heart, most of the time they're not passing like within the next hour. The heart is usually the last place that the energy leaves. It's really quite astounding to be able to feel the energy in a person that is getting ready to pass. It seems logical to me that we know that people are living in the afterlife, therefore we can communicate with them. There's a quantum physics concept, and it's called entrainment. Maybe you're familiar with entrainment. The energy from one object can change the vibrations of another object, leading to synchronization of both items together. This is what happens with Reiki. You provide intentional healing energy from the universe to yourself, family, friends, clients, colleagues, pets, or plants. You're providing intentional healing energy. The energy from the universe synchronizes with that person, animal, or plant's energy, which leads to healing. Imagine the power of love. Share love, and others will receive it. The more people that share love, the more love will predominate. That's the power of entrainment, transformation, and Reiki. I went to my first IANDS annual conference, my first IANDS annual conference in 2018, and lots of synchronicities happened when that occurred. It was really quite phenomenal, and it was in Seattle, Washington. I was stunned to realize that there is tremendous research and evidence that states that our consciousness is separate from the brain. Until 2018, I assumed that's what happened, but I didn't have the words to put it together. And that is what happened. I hope you've read this book, After. Here, let's see if I can go to After. And it's by, here we go. Whoops. Bruce Greyson. Here we go. This book, After, is written by Bruce Greyson. He's a physician, he's a psychiatrist, and he is one of the preeminent researchers of near-death experiences. It was published 2021, I believe, and it is phenomenal. I thought it was going to be dry. It is not dry at all. If you're looking for validation that the afterlife is real and consciousness does not die when our physical body dies, that book will absolutely help you understand how this whole thing works. Bruce is a scientist, and he provides hundreds of validations that human consciousness remains after death. You know, one of the most powerful concepts about near-death experiences is the love that is felt, the love that remains when people travel to different realms of existence. And most of the time, people don't talk about it because they'll think when they come back and they share this, people will think they have lost their minds. IANDS a couple of years ago did a whole fundraising effort. And now, if you're looking for free materials that explain to medical professionals what happens during a near-death experience, if you go on the IANDS website, IANDS.org, International Association for Near-Death Studies.org, IANDS.org, and you search Medical Gap of Kea. So if you search medical gap of care, just put that in, it's on the home page, search medical gap of care. It'll bring you right to this compilation of articles and information published by the Johns Hopkins University Press, which is a very esteemed publication site. Johns Hopkins University Press published this whole free manuscript on near-death experiences, primarily for medical professionals and all others. And so I encourage you to check it out. It's totally awesome. I'm delighted to be the first person to teach Reiki at IANDS Annual Conference. And that started in 2019. No, wrong. That started in 2021. And that was online. And then last year it was in person. And this year with the IANDS Conference, which you all know is in Arlington, Virginia. And so that's that. Please come to the International Association of Near-Death Studies annual conference. And if you want to learn Reiki in person, I'm teaching it on Wednesday, August 30th. And so it's on Wednesday, August 30th, and that's in-person Reiki. It's really great fun. Hopefully you're familiar with the Bigelow Awards. And if you're not, I am so excited to share this. You know, just like I was waiting for research about Reiki, I've been waiting for something to scientifically prove that the afterlife is real, and we now have it. February of 2021, just like 2 years ago, Robert Bigelow, who started the Institute for Consciousness Studies, said that he would pay $1 million for anyone that can prove that human consciousness survives bodily death. In November 2021, he awarded $1.8 million to 29 prize-winning essays. The person that won is Jeffrey Mishlove. He won $500,000, $500,000, proving that consciousness survives bodily death. Jeffrey Mishlove has a podcast, and it's called New Thinking Aloud. You can get all these 29 prize-winning essays for free, and I put the link on the bottom of this slide. And so, if you want to search for it, try searching Essay Contest Bigelow Awards, or try searching Essay Contest Bigelow Institute of Consciousness Studies Awards, and you'll get it. But anyway, the link is right there, and they're all free, and you can get them and download them easily. It's a piece of cake, and these prize-winning essays are excellent. And so if you're looking for validation that the afterlife is real, check them out. So Jeffrey Mishlove wins $500,000. It's an astounding, absolutely astounding essay. Videos, 8 different areas of rationales. I'm so excited that an occupational therapist, Emmy Vadnais, is his co-host for his podcast. I'm like, all right. Now, I know I'm talking about OT. It doesn't mean all OTs believe in the afterlife or are trained in Reiki. But for me, it was the validation that I needed, that I had not totally lost my mind. Now, the second place winner is Dr. Pim Van Lobel. He's a cardiologist, and he did what's called the Amsterdam study. And he analyzed near-death experiences from 10 hospitals, 10 Dutch hospitals, and it's absolutely fantastic. And so he was able to get, gosh, I think it's between 10 and 18% of people that had a cardiac arrest, that had a heart attack, had a near-death experience. It's a great article. There's also Dr. I always get the first name wrong, so I want to write it. Dr. Jeff Long and his wife Jody. So it's Jeff and Jody Long. They have the largest compilation of near-death experiences online. It's over 5,000. And they have a foundation. It's called the Near-Death Experience Research Foundation. And he's one of the big winners. And also Robert and Suzanne May. Now, Robert Mays is the IANDS treasurer. He's right now the IANDS treasurer. And so near-death experiences are very much represented in the Bigelow Institute for Consciousness Awards. If you'd like to experience Reiki online, and it absolutely does work. You know, one of the first times I did Reiki online, I was asked to do a Reiki online treatment. I had never met this woman before, and I was in the middle of an hour-long treatment. It was about 20 minutes in. And when I do Reiki online, I'm beaming it online. And it felt like she had a pain in her right knee. And so I write it down on my yellow pad. I always have yellow pads, right knee pain. And after about 5 minutes, the pain went away. After another 5 minutes, she was really receiving the Reiki well. She had, when I do Reiki treatment online, I always ask people to be very comfortable. And I try to position the screen so that I can see the upper half of their body. But quite frankly, most of the time my eyes are closed. But it provides validation for them to know that I'm actually there and they can see me and all of that. But their eyes are usually closed too. Anyway, after about 5 minutes, it felt like she was levitating above the bed. And so I write that down on my yellow pad, levitating above the bed. So after about 45, 50 minutes, I stopped the Reiki treatment and I said, "How are you doing?" And I'd never met her before. And she said, "Becky, when we started, I didn't share that I had a pain in my right knee, and now it's gone." And so I hold up my yellow pad that said right knee pain and said, "Yes, I felt that." And I said, "Well, how are you feeling emotionally?" And she said, "I felt like I was dancing on air." And so I hold up my yellow pad again where it says levitating above the bed. And I'm like, "Yes, you were. It was totally fantastic." And so if you're interested in learning Reiki online, I'm teaching it, and I'm teaching it soon. And Reiki Level I is, I always try to do online treatments, online training on the weekends. So if people are working during the week, you have time on the weekends. And it's a 6-hour contact hour course. And Reiki Level I is on Saturday, March 25th. Reiki Level II is on Sunday, March 26th. If you only can take one, Reiki Level I, totally fine. It goes from 12 to 7, 12 in the afternoon, 7 at night. And we have breaks every hour and a half, and you learn lots of things, and 3 experiential sessions. It works great. It's really quite astounding. If you're already trained in Reiki and you want to be a Reiki Master, let me know. Let's do an interview. And Reiki Master is on April 1st. And so what it's called is Reiki Immersion Online. And you can see the website and such. Just my name, RebeccaAustill-Clausen.com/Reiki-immersion, IMMERSION. 2 days ago, I opened a page of a website, and I wanted to provide the training that I've been doing for the last really 2 to 3 years, teaching people that we all can communicate with the afterlife. And so what I'm going to be doing is I'm creating a bundle of these 7-week sessions that teach people this 7-step course to learning how to communicate with your loved ones. And so this is going to be coming out sometime this year. There's a couple of guest speakers. One of them is Nicholas Pearson, and Nicholas Pearson is pretty much the hottest crystal expert out there. And he talks about how crystals can accentuate after-death communication. And we also do crystals in Level 2 Reiki. Dr. Jeff O'Driscoll, who you may know if you've been to some of the IANDS conferences, he's a major keynote presenter. He's a physician, and he is one of the guest presenters, and also Paula Lentz, and she presents a lot at IANDS, and she had an experience where she had a sheer death experience and a spiritual experience where she was able to communicate with her brother while she was driving his truck 3 days after his funeral. So you can sign up to get more information on that. Again, it's just my name /after-death. I'm almost finished, and then we'll go into questions and answers. It took me 20 years to have the courage to share what I've just shared with you. 20 years. I just kept it quiet while exploring immensely all these different complementary and integrative modalities. And then I sold my business. I had this big business and I sold it to my chief financial officer specifically to share what I just did with you. That the afterlife is real and that we can communicate with our loved ones, and Reiki helps. So I shared it in this book called Changemaker, How My Brother's Death Woke Up My Life, published by She Writes Press. And I fully expected to be professionally ostracized. Didn't happen, thank goodness. And that, let's see, it was published September 13th, 2016. About 6 months later, my husband and I are visiting all the national parks, which is a total blast. And we were in the whole rainforest. Now, do you know we have a rainforest in the United States? We do. And it's part of Olympic National Park. And Olympic National Park is located in the state of Washington. It's the upper northwest corner. It's magnificent. It's a great national park. And there's a rainforest. So I'm in the whole rainforest and I look at my phone, and it says, congratulations. Changemaker has just won 3 National Book Awards. Can you please come to the Book Expo of America in New York City and pick them up? And I'm like, all right, the afterlife is hitting the mainstream. Because even in 2000, this was 2017, it still wasn't that common as it is today. And so I flew to Philadelphia, picked up my illustrator, Mickey McAllister, and we went to New York City and had our few moments of fame. So if you're interested in learning how all this happened, check out Changemaker. The power of love is immense. This is my next to last slide. I was at a writing workshop a couple of years ago, and I wrote this about love. Love is the bridge that connects earthly existence with our deceased loved ones. Love emanates from our heart. The power of love surpasses all boundaries, whether physical, emotional, cultural, or societal. Love reaches into our souls and spreads outward in a never-ending symphony of orchestral beauty. Allow yourself to feel love for yourself, your family, your friends, clients, colleagues, pets, and plants and deceased loved ones living beyond. Allow yourself to feel love. It facilitates the ability to share love. The more love you give, the more love you get. Share unconditional love with your deceased loved ones, and it will definitely be received. I'm so excited to be teaching Reiki at annual conference for the IANDS. And I also, I wanted to share, I'm in charge of the healers at the IANDS Annual Conference. If you are a healer, and Kanoosh here, who I think, yep, she's still on. Kanoosh is going to be one of our healers, which excites me immensely. And so if you're interested in providing healing at the IANDS Annual Conference, let me know. Just email me. And it's a wonderful way to join our circle of healers at the IANDS Annual Conference. And we do healing 20 minutes. You do 20-minute one-on-one healing sessions, and you sign up for like a 3-hour session or a 6-hour session. And if you sign up for 3 hours, you get to go to conference for free for half a day. If you sign up for 6 hours, you get to go to conference free for a full day. You're joining a wonderful community of healers. So feel free to let me know if you're interested. I'd love to talk to you more about it. Just email me, Becky at Austill-Clausen.com. And as you can see, the conference is Thursday, August 31st to Sunday, September 3rd. And we do healing throughout. This is my last slide. Reiki works. If you allow it to be, trust yourself, believe in yourself, and let the energy of Reiki lead you with love. I'm doing a free, let's see, Reiki Works Encore this coming Saturday. And so it's on March 4th from 1 to 2:30 p.m. I just did it yesterday, and gosh, we had 360 people that registered, and the questions and answers were phenomenal. It was absolutely astounding, and there's been such a high demand for this to be done again. I'm doing it this coming Saturday, so feel free to sign up if you'd like to do that. It's I don't think I have it here. It's RebeccaAustill-Clausen.com Reiki/works. Or if you just go to my website, you'll get it. Or if you're interested in learning Reiki, Reiki immersion. Thank you very, very much. And please, please now ask me any questions you want. I always like to give people resources and ways to expand the learning that we talked about during the presentation. So let me stop sharing, and I'm back.
Very much, Becky. And yes, indeed, I'd like to encourage everybody to either raise their hand and ask a question, or go ahead and put it in the chat so that we can definitely get some questions have been coming in, and I think Mike's been able to answer them in terms of your website and other resources, that kind of thing. So I have a question. You broke it up in terms of Reiki, Ray part being higher intelligence and the key part being energy. So I'm just really trying to understand what Reiki is. We're getting in touch with our own energy, because you've talked in the past about how the body heals itself, and the facilitator or the Reiki Master is really, I guess, drawing on the energy that the individual already has and maybe rechanneling it to the individual. Just help us understand that.
Sure. It's actually, thank you for asking that. Energy's all around us. It's within us and surrounds us. And what Reiki does is it believes that there's something broader than our physical body. And so Reiki energy is within the universe. And the Reiki practitioner draws the energy from the universe through the practitioner's body and sends it to the person receiving Reiki. It's the person's own body that's doing the healing. It's not the Reiki practitioner. The Reiki practitioner is just a channel for that energy coming from the universe. Because Reiki has an attunement process, and the attunement is where we're tapping into all these, it's three primary Reiki symbols. These symbols have power and energy, and it facilitates that energy to be used for healing for the person's highest good. We always ask for the person's highest good to be received, because it's not up to us as a Reiki practitioner to say, oh, you must have this. We don't know what the person's gone through. It's up to the individual, their own body, their own soul, their own consciousness to provide that healing. So that's how that works.
We have a question here. Let's see, does Reiki have a negative effect on the person who gives it?
Who gives it? No, it's very lovely. It's very, because you're taking love. Reiki's known as unconditional love. You're taking love from the universe, sending it through you to the person. Now, if that's an interesting question. It does not have a negative effect on the person that is sending Reiki. But if you're the type of person that wants to say, I'm doing the healing, then a lot of times you could connect with that energy that may be a little bit needing to be cleansed, and you may start to receive the effects of that. So you don't want to say it's me. It's not me. It's the energy from the universe, and it's that person's own body that's doing the healing. When a person provides Reiki, the feeling is love, peace, kindness, joy, gratitude. I mean, it's absolutely phenomenal. You're sending the Reiki, the healing energy is going through you. You're sending it to that client, and it's a beautiful energy. It's very, very lovely.
But if the actual person who you're trying to help as a Reiki practitioner is a skeptic, and that obviously must make a huge difference. So you've got someone who's very receptive to the idea of self-energy healing, etc., and open to working with you, versus somebody who's rather skeptical and really on the fence and wanting to see if it really does work. I mean, there must be a world of difference.
Well, you would think so, but there is not. There is not. Reiki does not require a belief. And you think, well, how could that be? It's because the belief is our mind. It's not our mind that's doing our healing. It's our body. And so it's our consciousness, and our consciousness we now know is not connected to the mind. It's connected to the brain while we're here on earth, but it does not totally reside. So you do not need to have a belief in Reiki. And I'll give you an example. My mother didn't like this at all. She didn't believe it, didn't want it. She had 13 years of chronic sciatic pain. And she was in so much pain. It was so awful to see. And the number one reason people use Reiki is to reduce the pain. And finally, 1 week before she passed, 1 week, she said, Becky, you know that thing you do? Could you try it on me? And I'm like, sure. And she was a skeptic, absolutely a skeptic, didn't believe it, didn't want it, didn't acknowledge it. And that was fine. You know, it's her life. So I gave her a Reiki session, and she said, I said, how are you doing, Mom? After. And she waited a minute. And I describe it as she picked lint off her clothes, because that's what she did. And she said, you know, I actually feel good. You can do that anytime. And a week later, she passed. And I'm like, oh my gosh. So you do not need to believe it. You would think you do, but so you don't need to believe it, because it's not a mind deal. You do need to be open to receiving it. And that's why we always ask permission. That was a good question.
Also, how do you differentiate between people who meditate on a regular basis and are very open to just calming the mind and relaxing the body, and somewhat those brain waves can settle down to theta, maybe even the delta levels, which can sort of get in touch with the unconscious and just calm the body. Is there a difference, would you say, between Reiki that's being administered through a practitioner such as yourself versus the individual just essentially relaxing the body and meditating?
I'd say it's about the same. They're all biofield medical modalities. Energy's energy. Now, some people may say, well, you know, this is a little bit different because of this and this and this. But bottom line, in my opinion, energy's energy. And so whatever form of relaxation, meditation, awareness, connectedness with yourself you find works, go for it. Like, go for it. Sometimes I feel like such a person that says you must have Reiki. I don't believe you must have Reiki, but I say, hey, Reiki does work. And, you know, think about learning it. It really is quite something. And you can learn it in one day. I'm like, oh my gosh. When I got married, my husband is a great meditator, and I see Rita has a question, so I want to, you know, be able to get Rita too, Angie. But when my husband and I got married, and as you can tell, I have a fair amount of energy. I had never meditated at all, nor was I interested in it. And he says, Becky, we get married. He goes, Becky, how about if I teach you how to meditate? I'm like, oh no. That is not going to work. So maybe in about 10 years. And do you know, in about 10 years after we got married, that's when my brother passed. That's when I learned Reiki. That's when I learned meditation, shamanic journeying, and started this whole huge journey of awareness, enlightenment. It really was quite spectacular. So it's whatever works.
The way you've given your presentation, it sounds as though there's always a goal, and that is to help heal someone from a physical ailment of sorts. But does it always have to have that physical component, or can you do Reiki just to kind of get in touch with your higher self, to get some clarity in terms of your own emotional malaise, for example?
Yes, Reiki works on the physical and the social and the emotional and the mental. And so the feeling of awareness and unconscious and recognizing the unconscious reality is absolutely fantastic. It brings peace and well-being. That's studied with Harvard 2019. Not only did it have all those physical components, it also increased a sense of well-being. And that's what we want. I mean, gosh, for us to feel good, that's awesome.
Let's get to some of the questions. I didn't see a question from, did you say
Rita? Yeah, Rita's been having her hand up.
Okay, great. Go ahead, Rita. And then we'll
Thank you very much. Okay, so I did first of all, I'm totally immersed right now in A Course in Miracles. And when I think of abundance,
yeah,
forgiveness has been the most powerful thing I've ever done in my life. But what's interesting, the real question is that, so about 2 years ago at this point, I did an online Reiki 1. And I got to tell you, I did not feel like it was overly powered. And I love this lady, medium, lovely, lovely lady. I have total faith in her. However, I didn't really do much with it. And so I'm kind of, and I'm not a meditator. I've got a little bit of a twitchy brain, but I'm wondering, before I do a Reiki 2, there was something online where there is this lovely man who helped you go through Reiki 1 and the symbols and whatever. And I'm just wondering, to go on to Reiki 2, I'm really asking what I know I should do. I should probably be practicing this on myself every day. What would you say to strengthen and also get in touch? I kind of feel like it, especially thinking of A Course in Miracles, my higher self is me. You know, the divinity is me. So does the Reiki help to just make all of that much clearer and stronger? And what happens with the body is what happens with the body. But what I really want to do is awaken to that light and love in me.
Rita, that was an excellent, excellent statement, and way to go, way to go for the Course of Miracles. Isn't that the coolest course?
Say it truly has transformed all of my relationships, which means I've got all my fingers, all my expectations are gone. I'm a lot happier.
I did the Course in Miracles when it first came out. And well, I think it first came out because it was like a long time ago.
70s, late 70s.
Yeah. Well, it's I didn't do it in the 70s, but it was in the early 90s, and it's fantastic. So, way to go on the Course in Miracles. I've been teaching Reiki for years. I've taught thousands and thousands of people Reiki. And a lot of times before COVID, people would come to me and they'd say, Becky, I just took an online Reiki course, but I'm going to take yours in person, because I was doing it in person before COVID. And I'm like, well, why are you doing that? And I didn't get it. Yeah. And so I was skeptical about the online Reiki. And the thing that I would encourage you or other people, if you're going to take an online Reiki course, please make sure that there's multiple experiential practices. Because a lot of times with online courses, you read and you study and, you think about it and it says to do it on yourself. Well, the way I do it is I have Zoom breakout rooms. And with the Zoom breakout room, there's only 2 people in each room. And that's where you send Reiki to one person, you talk about it, they send it back to you, you talk about it. You do it with 3 different people. The first thing you learn in Reiki Level I is how to give it to yourself, because you want to be able to give it to yourself first. We want to be helping ourselves to heal so that we're not looking for others. We want to be able to heal unconditionally, to help heal unconditionally. And so Reiki 1, you learn self-healing, you get attuned, and then you have experiential sessions. And so I wanted to comment on your word should. I should be giving myself Reiki every single day. Isn't that right? I hate the word should, because should implies judgment. You don't have to judge yourself, because you're awesome the way you are. You have a beautiful smile. You have lovely energy, lovely colors in your aura. Like, you are awesome. And so you don't have to should yourself. You could give yourself Reiki. But if you don't want to give yourself Reiki and you want to learn it again, go do that. Or if you want to, think about maybe giving yourself, that you could give yourself Reiki, just do it for a minute. It doesn't have to be for long.
I got you.
Just put your hands on your heart. Take a couple of deep breaths. Breathe in, be mindful. And I understand about the mind going all over the place. And there's lots of different ways we can help our mind relax, which get taught. But, just put your hands on your heart and feel the love for yourself. And so regarding learning more about Reiki, a lot of people take Reiki Level 1 again if they want a refresher, but you don't have to do that. You don't have to do that, but they do. Sometimes people do Reiki Level 1 as a refresher, or they go right into Reiki Level 2. If you are interested in taking Reiki Level 2 with me, the only thing I say is to please send me your certificate so that I just sort of validate that you've been attuned.
That's actually the best, yeah.
Yeah. And so it just sort of, helps me to know that you've already received what you need to do in Reiki Level 1. But bottom line, you're awesome. Like, you're awesome. And so do whatever feels right to you. And I'm saying that, honestly, from my heart, from looking at your energy, looking at your beautiful smile, like, way to go. Like, way to go.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Several questions. So there's a question here from Alex. I reached the master level about 15 years ago. The first and second levels, I felt very physical. How do I check that I'm actually at master's level?
Hi, Alex. Well, way to go. Way to go for being a Reiki master. I think the word Reiki master is somewhat ridiculous because, like, I teach Reiki master in one day. And so essentially, we're talking 3 days of Reiki, and then you call yourself a Reiki master. But for me, I always say you must have at least 6 months experience after receiving Reiki Level 2 in order to be a Reiki master. If you get a special Reiki master attunement, and so hopefully you had a special Reiki master attunement. Since you're questioning or you want to check yourself about whether you're a Reiki master or not, why don't you talk with me? Let's have a Reiki master interview if you want. And I'll talk with you very pleasantly and nicely, and you can go over what you do and all of that. And I'm going to say, yes, Alex, you're a Reiki master. Or I'm going to say, hey, maybe you might want to take the Reiki master again. That's what a lot of people do that haven't done this in a while. They'll take it again, or a lot of Reiki masters that are interested in teaching others, because you learn in the Reiki master class, you learn how to set up your own Reiki practice, how to teach others, how to attune others. You learn all the latest research, all of that jazz. Plus you have experiential sessions with other Reiki master attendees. And so you really do finish the class knowing, yes, I'm a Reiki master. And since you are asking about it, maybe talk to me about it or send me an email or whatever. I would say, since you're questioning it, you might want to start giving yourself more Reiki. If you were attuned as a Reiki master, you are a Reiki master. But I'd encourage you to give yourself more Reiki, or start giving other people or your pets or your animals, plants, whatever, relatives, family, friends, like, start using it until you get real comfortable with that. Because it's really just a name. Reiki master is an advanced clinician. And so hopefully that helped. Thanks for asking that.
We have a question from Maine.
Oh, yes. Hi, Maine.
Wait just a moment while we unmute you.
And you might need to unmute yourself.
I think we have that.
Oh, you have everybody muted. Oh, here you go. Hi,
Yeah,
Maine.
I just unmuted myself.
Oh,
Okay, I have a question. I believe everything. I've been interested in and read up on anything having to do with spiritual anything. I mean, going back to the 70s. So for 50, is it 50 years? 30, 40?
It is.
50, yeah. I mean,
Yay!
put it this way, I started with Edgar Cayce when I was a young teenager.
Yay!
and moved on to Seth and, everything in between.
You go, girl.
Yes, but I do believe my problem is that I'm all in mental. I'm all in my head. I have a hard time connecting with feeling, really. And I've wondered about myself for a while, because I don't know if I'm too judgmental or analytical or what, but the only thing that really gets me feeling is animal issues. I can really feel for animals. I have a hard time feeling for people. I'm thinking free will, your own problem. That being said, I give to 22 different charities, that most of which help people. There's a few animals. In any case, it's so much mental. I'm wondering how to break through and feel more, to connect with the feeling side of life rather than so predominantly mental.
First of all, Mame, is that how you say it, Mame?
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing. And thank you for being a 50-year explorer of spirituality. You go, girl. One of the life highlights for me was speaking at the Edgar Cayce Institute. And I'm like, all right, this is the Edgar Cayce Institute. And it was IANDS. And so it was the IANDS Southern, I guess it's a Southern Virginia chapter with David Bennett and the whole crew. Edgar Cayce's awesome. Animals are awesome. You're awesome. Like, you're awesome. You're in your head. It's okay, you're in your head, but it sounds like you want to have a little bit more heart. Honest to Pete, Reiki will help you with the heart. There's energy centers in our body. And you know this, they're called chakras. I would think you would know this. They're called chakras. Sometimes energy gets stuck in the different energy centers. And what Reiki does is it helps move stuck energy. It sounds like you have a lot of energy right here, which is great, except it sounds like you want a little bit more heart. And so let's give you some more heart love. You give yourself love. Other people will give you love. And it'll happen in one day. If you really want to accentuate it, think about doing Reiki 1 and 2, or think about taking animal Reiki. Animal Reiki. Now, a friend of mine, her name's Rose O'Connor, and she teaches animal Reiki. And if you contact Rose, please tell her Becky said for me to say, hey, I'm the one that recommended her because she is awesome. And I travel a lot. And Rose is the person that will be on my coaching page that says, I'm traveling. Think about using Rose. So you'll be able to get her, or you can send me an email and say, hey, send me Rose's name or whatever email. Her company is called, her business is called Reiki is Love. REIKIS. So she doesn't have 2 I's. REIKS, KIS, love. Reiki is Love. Rose O'Connor teaches animal communication and or animal Reiki. And it's a blast. And so maybe you might want to go right to the animal rather than working on yourself. Although personally, I would think it would be very nice if you were able to open up your heart a little bit more, since that's what you're asking. But that's another, it's another avenue for you.
I had signed up for this session a while back. And in the meantime, I ended up going to a place nearby here for a massage. And one of the things they offered was a Reiki massage. Now, I did the regular massage, but scheduled the Reiki because it's like, I don't know anything about this. Let me find out what this is about. So I had a Reiki massage, if you will. And so I don't know if that's, I'm kind of a dilettante. I get into everything for a little bit, but then I don't stay with it. So I'm without taking a class and becoming a Reiki practitioner, how can one get the benefits of it?
You can receive Reiki either in person or online. I gave Reiki to someone last week that had never had Reiki before. And it was one of the most powerful experiences she's ever had. And it was like, whoa. And it was so fun to see the enlightenment and the expansion of her awareness in one session. And so
is that different from the Reiki massage that I had a couple of weeks ago?
Well, how'd you feel?
Well,
after?
I felt good, but I wasn't paying attention to be able to measure how much better am I now than I was an hour ago. I don't know how to do that because I'm not real good at feeling.
Reiki, just for your information, Reiki usually lasts anywhere from 3 to 5 days. The feeling of comfort, peace, joy, inner satisfaction, 3 to 5 days. If it only lasts for about an hour, usually there could be more that maybe could be done. But next time you have a Reiki massage or Reiki treatment or whatever, go check yourself before you go in and say, okay, I'm going to see how this works. But the idea for Reiki is actually you want to relax your mind rather than thinking, okay, I'm halfway through. How do I feel now? Like, you don't really want to do that. You want to try to relax and go with the flow. And it is quite something for us, particularly in this country. We're so biomechanical. That's one of the reasons I get so excited about these Bigelow Awards, because if with your mind concentration, if you haven't read the Bigelow Awards, I encourage you to check them out. They're all there, and just go through, look at them, look at the people, because it has the pictures, look at the people and see which one resonates with you. Because that'll help with it'll help with the mental awareness that the afterlife is real. It sounds like you're talking more about the heart, which again comes back to Reiki. So,
Yeah,
maybe take a Reiki Level I class, maybe see how it goes.
Yeah, that might be a good idea.
It might be, and it's okay to be skeptical.
But did you say that's one day?
Yeah, it's one day. It's sat the way, and I don't mean to be a commercial. It's Saturday, March 25th, and it's from 12 to 7. And there's online, and and you have breaks every hour and a half. It's online, Reiki immersion online, March 25th, Saturday.
No, wait. Okay, let me make sure. I want to do that. March 5th,
25th.
25th.
Yep, it's in about like a month. It's a month.
And it's noon to 5?
Noon to 7.
Noon to 7. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, I know. So you think, oh my God, that's a long time. It actually works. It's an hour and a half, and then you get a break. Now the hour and a half, you get a longer break. And then the last 3 hours are all experiential.
Okay, so this is accessible through your website?
Yep.
Okay.
We have a question here from Alex in terms of the different kinds of Reiki. So,
yep. And so, ma'am, if you have any questions, feel free to let me know. It'd be a blast to have you in the class.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Alex, you had asked about the different kinds of Reiki.
Oh, yeah. She said, I learned, I'm not sure how to pronounce this.
Usui. Yep.
Usui Reiki. Yep. How are the different types of Reiki different, and do they complement each other or build on each other?
Yes. So Usui Reiki is what I teach. I'm also Holy Fire certified and Shamanic Reiki certified. So those are 3 different kinds. There's also Kundalini Reiki, Animal Reiki. There's all sorts of different Reiki components that essentially have the same concepts. They have the same concepts. So yes, they are complementary to each other. They overlap each other. It sort of depends on what your focus is. And so if you learned Usui Reiki, that's the same type of Reiki that I'm talking about. But I do bring in components from, the other realms, because bottom line, in my opinion, everything's the same. Bottom line, it just depends on how you get there. There's all different ways that you can get there. But bottom line, energy is energy, and we can all access it.
Some questions before we finish up. So the pictures that you showed us, the before and after picture of yourself in terms of your aura, that one-sided, you seem to be a lot darker, less developed. And then after the 3 days, it seemed to be just better rounded. So can you tell us what happened during those 3 days that you think contributed to that more of a sort of rounded out aura?
Sure. It was so fun for me to find those pictures. I'm like, wow, these are pretty interesting. So before the conference, before I was trained in Reiki, there was this holistic conference, same day, it was at the same place. So I went to this holistic conference and I was being trained in Reiki. Before the conference, all the vendors were set up, and I'd never heard of Kirlian, Kirlian photography. I'd never heard of that. And I'm like, well, what is this? And it takes a picture of your aura, and it still does this. I mean, it's still around. So you can, if you go to a New Age or holistic expo, you might be able to take a picture of your aura. It's a blast. And so I didn't even believe in auras. I didn't know about auras, didn't understand auras. I was like, MAME, I'm in my head. I'm like, how can this be real? Except that I had had these experiences with my brother, so I was open to it, but I had no idea what it was. So that before picture was before Reiki, before I went to the conference. I got trained in Reiki Level I. It was just one day. Got trained in Reiki Level I in person. Anne-Marie McClintock, occupational therapist, loved it. Got attuned to Reiki, met all these people that I liked, and they were professional. For me, that was important. They weren't these nutcases. They were professionals. And then I went to a 2-day conference, or maybe it was a 3-day conference. I guess it was 2 days, because I did Reiki the first day, and then it was 2 days of conference. The conference was with psychologists, social workers, physicians, physical therapists, occupational therapists, speech pathologists. And I went to about 20 different sessions, tons. I just went and went and went and went. And I'm like, wow. I mean, the universe opened up to me. And then on the very last day of the conference, so after, 3 days, then I went back to this. I was walking around the vendors, and here's the Curlian photography again. And I thought, oh, well, let me check and see if there's any change. Had no idea what was going to happen. And that's when the whole aura was complete. And I thought, this is amazing. And so that was in 3 days. It was a 3-day difference between being in my head, aware and open, but not really knowing anything. And then got attuned to Reiki and went to a conference where I learned that there were other healthcare professionals that were interested in spiritual growth and healing. So that's what happened.
Do you think you got in touch with all parts of yourself through that Reiki course, and those Reiki courses? Because one side of you seemed to be kind of less developed. Is there anything about the particular shape of the aura that tells people, what it is that they need to continue to work on? And then the colors. I don't know anything about auras.
Yeah, it's yes, there are lots to learn about auras. And for me, I'm just so attracted to the fact that one side wasn't developed and then it was developed. I'm like, well, that's pretty cool. And there's a whole specialty, a whole modality on auras and colors of auras. Usually they're colors. This one was white. A lot of times white is more a symbol of connectedness with the beyond. The whole thing is I found it pretty exciting.
Do you think you can actually, in people's auras, do you think you can pick up disease?
Disease?
Disease, yeah.
No.
Do you think that illness can be seen in people's aura?
Yes. Oh, pick up. Oh, I thought you meant get in yourself. Absolutely. And yeah, it's very interesting. When I started online Reiki, I actually learned how to see auras, because I was like am interested in auras, and I've tried hard to see auras. I was unable to see auras well until online. And so online, like, I can see all your auras and it's amazing. And I can see the colors and all that jazz. And so somehow, I don't know what it is in the computer or the internet that allows me to see colors, but yes, you can see it. And you can see auras that aren't fully connected. And you can see, I don't know if you could actually, well, you can. I mean, you can actually see if an aura is not connected, then that could indicate that the energy is either stuck or there could be a sign of disease or whatever. As a Reiki practitioner, I always say we are not diagnosticians. You can't, I never encourage people to say, hey, I just saw that you have a problem in your aura. You need to get that checked out. Like, that's not good. But instead, what you can say is, when I was over, let's see, how would it go? When I was over your stomach, it felt like the energy needed to move a little bit more. The next time you go to the doctor, you may want to ask him to analyze, to just check out your stomach a little bit. And you'll know when you encounter energy that is really stuck or doesn't really feel good or whatever, you'll learn. The more you practice Reiki, the more you learn how this works. You'll be able to tell when there's something that could require a medical analysis. And so I encourage people to use pleasant words rather than getting anybody all upset, because we know that emotional distress can also cause dis-ease. And so we're trying to equalize the energy in our body with love, because Reiki is called unconditional love, which is awesome.
Do you know of any studies where perhaps somebody's been hit with cancer of some sort, and where they've actually done studies where the person gets the regular chemotherapy and maybe radiation, and versus somebody who gets the same chemotherapy, radiation, and has Reiki? Have been any control studies done with that?
Yes, actually, I thought I had this book right here. I guess I don't. There's a wonderful book by David McGinley, Maginley, and he doesn't use Reiki, he uses healing touch, and it's healing. I'm pretty sure it's healing touch or therapeutic touch. I'm pretty sure it's healing touch. And David McGinley is, gosh, it's something about cancer. I thought I had it. I guess I don't have it right here, but if you look up on Amazon, David McGinley, Maginley, cancer, you'll get it. And he talks a lot about the benefits of healing touch with cancer. And healing touch is just another form of energy work. It's very similar to Reiki. It just doesn't have the attunement. But healing touch is what's certified by the nurses. And so it's the first certified complementary modality. There's actually protocols on how you give healing touch, where you do it, how you do it. It's much more diagnostic. And so his book would be good, I would think, for you, Angie.
Yeah, you've talked about the different symbols. Are these literally physical things that that you work with and on different levels? I misunderstand.
When you become Reiki Level II certified,
yeah,
you get a picture of these symbols.
A picture.
Yes, so that you can draw them. Like you learn how to draw them. You learn how to draw these symbols. These are Japanese letters, and so these symbols were confidential. For, let's see, Reiki came to the United States. Reiki came to the United States in about 46. I could be a little wrong on that, but just by 5 years or so. So Reiki came to the United States, and Reiki was considered, the symbols were considered very, very confidential. And so in order to become a Reiki master, it costs $10,000. $10,000. And then there's a woman by the name of Diane Stein, and she wrote this book. I think you can see it, Essential Reiki. And it has the symbols in here. Oops, here we go. And this was published in, I believe, 1994. And it was the first time these symbols were published. And she spent a number of years wrestling with herself about whether to publish these symbols because they were so confidential. And the world started to change in the 90s. And she was advised that the world needed Reiki. We need Reiki. We need the love. We need the comfort, the joy, the recognition that we can help heal ourselves. And since Diane Stein published these symbols, millions of people now use Reiki, and it's considered quite a valid modality, but there wasn't research. And then in 2019, this large-scale Reiki study by Dyer, Baldwin, and Rand happened with that 1,411 people. And it's a good study. Like, it's a good statistical study that Reiki with one session does validate a reduction in pain, anxiety, stress, depression, and an increase in well-being. So that's what we needed. We needed something like that.
Regarding the after-death communication, what is it about Reiki in itself, do you think, that facilitates that? What component of it is it exactly?
We all have energy. Reiki raises our vibrational energy. It's a different level of energetic awareness when we're in the afterlife, where it's a different energy level. And so Reiki raises that energy level so that we can connect easier with our loved ones or the afterlife. And so there's a meeting of that energy, because your whole body changes with Reiki. And I'm saying in a good way. in a good way, the body changes. And it helps us be more loving. And love is a higher vibration. The afterlife is a higher vibration. These higher vibrations connect. And that's what happens with Reiki.
Now, you said something that really struck me about Edward.
Edward. Oh, Edward, yes.
David was your brother. Edward was, I think, a friend. And both David, your brother, and Edward have passed. And I think you said that at one point, David asked you to do some Reiki with Edward, who's already on the other side. Could you explain that, please? How is it that the other side might need some help? Surely they're in a place where they're beyond our help.
You know, I was quite flabbergasted myself. And this was only like 2 years into it, because I don't think it's in my book. And my book, Changemaker, talks about that first year. It might have been, because I kept copious notes that first year when I was learning how to do all of this. It was really amazing. Edward was in need of healing, according to David. And so I sent with intention. You know, I went into Reiki is very meditative. And so you go in and you can learn how to do this. As you can imagine, I had no idea how to meditate before this thing happened. And for 4 months after I was learning Reiki, I would go out on my horse and I'd ride and I would breathe slowly. That's all I did, is just breathe slowly. And I'd have these amazing journeys. And after 4 months, this shaman said to me, Becky, you're meditating. I'm like, I am? And she said, yes, you're meditating. So I would do that same process where I'd close my eyes and I'd be very calm and intentionally, you know, breathe slowly. And then with mindful intention, I would send, and I probably use my hands just because that's what I do, to send healing to Edward, because I could see him. I would see Edward. Some people don't see people that are in the afterlife. I happen to be able to see him. Sometimes I see him, sometimes I hear him, but I could see Edward and I could feel him. Reiki teaches you to feel. So I could feel him and I sent him Reiki, and it was amazing. I thought it worked, but I didn't know until David said it. But since you're asking about Edward, there's a story I didn't share, and I hope you don't mind listening to another story. So I'm in the hospital. I'm going back to when David's still alive. He's in the hospital. He's going to die. I couldn't believe it. My brother's going to die that week. And it was horrible. It was horrible. And so I'm walking around the hospital, and I'm an OT. I mean, I know hospitals well. And there was a room on the hospital floor where my brother was, and it was called meditation room. I had never done meditation, never been in a meditation room. I didn't even know there was something like a meditation room, but it happened to be on this floor. So I went in. Edward had already passed, and he had passed about 6 months ago. And it made me very sad because I was not able to say goodbye. And I knew he was sick, but I didn't know he was that sick. And I always felt badly that I wasn't able to say goodbye. Well, anyway, he had already passed when David was going to die that week. And so I go into this meditation room. It's very lovely. I think there was a stained glass window in the end. And so I sat there and I closed my eyes and I asked for Edward to be with David. Could you please be with my brother when he passes? And all of a sudden, I saw Edward. And Edward was very tall. He was 6'7". He's a neighbor. We grew up with Edward, and he was David's age. So I see this being. It was Edward. He was in human form, and he gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And his head touches the top of the ceiling in this room. And he puts out his hands like this. And he says, I will be with David. And it made me feel comforted, and it made me feel good. When I had the sheer death experience where David with this, I didn't tell you the end of that sheer death experience, this big animal that I saw that looked like a dolphin. 3 months later, I drew a picture of it on a hospital sheet. So I had this little hospital sheet that I'd drawn this picture and shown it to my husband. 3 months later, I'm looking at Time or Life magazine, and they had a picture of a manatee, which I had never seen. Manatees are down in Florida. I'm in New England. I had never seen a manatee. And I looked at this picture and I started to cry. And my husband looks at this picture and he says, That's that picture that you saw, isn't it? That my brother had the big eyes. And I said, yes. And I went upstairs to my room, brought it down. There's the picture. When I saw that, which turns out to be a manatee that I thought was this dolphin, big fat dolphin type of creature, there was another little one. And I think that little one, I'm sure that little one was Edward. And so it's been so interesting to have Edward as part of this whole experience of learning how to communicate with my brother, sending healing energy to Edward from the other side, continuing to communicate with Edward. It's magical. You know, you open yourself up and it's magical. It's a magical experience. And when you get in the flow continues. It's incredible.
Just a couple of minutes left, but I also loved what you said as far as the work with hospice.
Yeah.
And that you can tell from the heart energy, just how much longer somebody's going to be on the planet. That's extraordinary. You tell us a little bit more about that. And you're just feeling this.
Yes. Yep. And Angie, I just want to make sure that we don't have any more questions, like all the questions are.
There's a comment here more than anything else. And it's, can you tell us about auras?
Auras.
An appointment to receive Reiki from you. So if somebody works with you to receive Reiki, would you be able to tell them about their aura?
Yes. Yes. But yes, that's the answer. Yes. So let me get back to, what was your question again? Sorry.
My
I
question,
got distracted.
as far as the hospice work that you've done,
Oh, yeah.
the idea of the heart energy being an indicator of how much longer somebody's going to be alive.
Yeah, it's really quite something. You learn how to feel energy. You can feel it. And so, you know, when you're providing, if as a Reiki practitioner, if you're providing love, essentially what you're doing is you're providing love, support, healing, not healing. You're not providing healing because you're not healing the body, but it's healing that the spiritual energy will be able to flow easily. That's what you're doing. And you ask any hospice nurse and they'll say, yes, I often see people with their hands raised before they die. And if the person's alert enough to describe who they're seeing, they'll say, I'm seeing my loved ones. I'm seeing them. And they have the most beautiful expression on their face. And it's such an honor to work with people that are transitioning. But anyway, the heart is most of the time, that's the chakra. That's the energy center that's left. That's the last one to go. And it doesn't mean that it goes. It just means that it's leaving the physical body. And then people start most of the time, people start communicating with us. I said most of the time, fairly rapidly. Like when my mom passed, she had been in severe pain for 13 years and she needed some healing. And I didn't hear from Mom for 6 months. Didn't hear from her for 6 months. And I didn't want to reach out to her because I didn't want to bother her. I figured she'd reach out to me when she was ready. 6 months after she passed, after being 13 years, massive pain, my husband's doing a puzzle and Mom always did puzzles. And so I'm looking at my husband's puzzle and all of a sudden I hear my mom's voice in my ear and it says, the piece goes right there. And I'm like, oh, Mom, how are you doing? And she's very, direct. The piece goes right there. And it was so amazing. What I believe happened is she was being healed during that time because there are people that live in the afterlife that their mission is to help others heal, particularly when they're transitioning. And so if people are ready to be healed, then healers are there to help heal. And so she, in my opinion, she was being, well, not my opinion, I mean, I believe this, she was being healed during that particular time. And so that's, the heart center is that connection that we always have because we have soul families. We have families that are in the soul, that communicate with us from the soul level. It's really, it's wonderful. These soul families that we have in the afterlife before we decide to come onto earth, oftentimes we connect with them here on earth as well. It's nice. I I know we're just about at the time. My son, our oldest son, has married a beautiful woman named Jenny. And Jenny's mom is named Linda. Every time, I didn't know Linda. I knew Jenny. I didn't know Linda. But my son played lacrosse. And so Linda and Jenny would come to the lacrosse games. Every time I saw Linda, I would cry. And these were tears of joy. And it happened 4 times. And I'm like, what is going on? And what Linda and I have talked about this quite a bit. And we believe we were part of each other's soul family before we came on earth. And so to reconnect with Linda again and to have both our kids married, so we see each other a lot, is just wonderful. You know, it's wonderful. So it's really quite special to be able to open up our hearts and be able to share love, not only with ourselves, but with others. And the more love you send, the more love you receive, the more love that's sent to the whole world. You know, it's a beautiful way to live.
Extremely special. And one of the things that I always love about you is it doesn't matter what time of day, you've always got a smile on your face. And, you know, I keep asking you, what do you want? So I can get some. Just always so incredibly joyful and appreciative. And it's just, it's such an inspiration to be around you. But I do want to say thank you to you for this afternoon and for everybody who's joined us. Since we did touch on after-death communication, I just do want to say to members who are on, we do have Jan Holden, President of IANDS, Dr. Holden, speaking to us next month on her work on after-death communication research. So she'll be joining us next month. So I hope everybody will tune in. In the meantime, namaste to you, Becky. Look forward to seeing you at the conference and take good care.
And Angie, thank you so much. It is such a pleasure collaborating with you. It is just a blast. And thank you, everybody, for being here. And truly go and see Jan Holden next month. She is fantastic. She has great, great, great studies on the after-death and after-death communication. Like, she is a leader in that whole process. And she's fantastic. And if you think of it, tell Jan I said hello.
I definitely will. Well, thank you to everybody. Hope to see
thank you, everybody, so much. It was a blast. Thank you. And lots of love to you all. Have a lovely day, always and forever.
Thank you. God bless.
Thank you.
Bye now.